1. We're checking out this absolutely rad 1985 Chevy Suburban that's popped up on Craigslist for $17,950. Let me tell you, this is one clean-looking surfer wagon that's really caught my attention. First off, we're looking at a white Suburban with the legendary big block 454 V8 under the hood, and that's something to get excited about. With just 82,000 miles on the clock, this beast has plenty of life left in it. The seller's been taking good care of this classic, and it shows. They've recently given it a full service, slapped on new tires, installed a fresh battery and alternator, basically making sure everything's running right. What makes this particular 85 Suburban special is its clean, straight condition, and the fact it's got that monster 454 engine, which was the top dog power plant you could get in these. It's a two-wheel drive model with an automatic transmission, making it perfect for cruising the coast or hauling your surfboards to the beach, hence the surfer wagon nickname. For the asking price of $17,950, you're getting a well-maintained piece of American automotive history. These mid-80s Suburbans are getting harder to find in this kind of condition, and with the recent maintenance work, you won't have to worry about immediate issues. The clean title is another plus that gives peace of mind. Look, I've got to be honest with you. While this isn't exactly cheap for an 85 Suburban, the combination of low miles, recent maintenance, and that desirable 454 engine makes this a pretty interesting find. These old-school Suburbans have a strong following, and this one appears to be a solid example of why people love them so much. I too. We're looking at a pretty interesting 1971 GMC half-ton pickup that's asking $9,500. Let me give you the straight scoop on this classic truck. What we've got here is a two-owner GMC with 106,000 miles showing on the clock. Now, the seller's being upfront about the mileage. They believe it's accurate but can't guarantee it, and I appreciate that honesty. It's sporting a white paint job and comes with a V8 engine paired to an automatic transmission, keeping things nice and simple. Here's something interesting, and I love when sellers are transparent about these details. It's got a Chevrolet tailgate because someone apparently stole the original GMC one from the first owner. While that might bug some purists, it's actually a pretty common sight on these old trucks, since GM parts were so interchangeable. At $9,500 OBO, or best offer, you're looking at a fairly priced classic pickup in today's market. These early 70s GMCs are getting harder to find, especially with a documented two-owner history and a clean title. The seller describes it as being in good condition, which typically means it's not perfect, but still solid. For anyone looking to get into classic trucks, this could be a nice entry point. The automatic transmission makes it easy to drive, and these old workhorses are generally pretty simple to maintain. Just remember, like any 50-plus-year-old vehicle, you'll want to give it a thorough inspection and maybe negotiate a bit with that OBO in mind. 3. We're checking out something really special. A 1972 Ford F-250 Ranger XLT camper special that's popped up for $15,500. And this one's got a story to tell. First off, this is a legitimate Arizona barn find with just one owner, which is already pretty exciting. But what makes this truck truly unique is its rare factory power pack option with an Onan electric generator. That's not something you see every day, folks. Let's dive into the specs because they're impressive. We're looking at a 390 V8 that's been thoughtfully modified. The engine was rebuilt at 100K miles, but here's where it gets interesting. They dropped in a cam from a 66 Fairlane GT 390, added a 428 Cobra Jet oil pump, and bored it 30 over for more power. There's only about 14K miles on that rebuild, which is fantastic. The transmission was rebuilt more recently at 112K miles and has just 2K miles on it. This beast comes equipped with the Camper Special Package, which means you're getting disc brakes up front, beefier drum brakes in the rear, heavy-duty shocks, and a larger radiator. It's sitting on a Dana 60 rear with 3.54 gears, and you've got the security of dual gas tanks. The truck wears a two-tone Wimbledon white and royal maroon paint scheme with what the seller describes as nice patina. The interior is reported to be in good shape, and being an Arizona truck, you're likely looking at a solid rust-free frame. 4. We're looking at a 1969 Dodge D200 pickup that's listed for $2,700, and I've got to be straight with you. This one's a project, but it might be worth your attention. Let's be honest here. The seller describes it as being in fair condition, and that's probably a fair assessment. The truck started life in light blue with white trim, but a previous owner decided to repaint it in a darker blue, and from the description, I'm guessing it wasn't exactly a show-quality paint job. Now here's where it gets interesting. This D200 is reportedly still running its original V8 engine and automatic transmission, which is pretty cool for originality's sake. The odometer shows 88,000 miles, and while that's reasonable for a truck of this age, remember we're talking about a 54-year-old vehicle here. One positive note is that the brakes were redone about 2 years ago to restoration specifications, so at least that major safety system has been addressed. That's a significant plus point, because brake work on these old trucks can get expensive. At $2,700, you're looking at an entry-level classic truck price. It's not going to win any beauty contests in its current state, but it could be a good starting point for someone who wants to get into classic trucks without breaking the bank. The clean title is definitely a plus. 5. Let's talk about this 1979 GMC Sierra 25 that's up for grabs at $12,000. And I've got to say, this one's got some interesting features worth discussing. We're looking at a one-owner Sierra Grande 4x4 3/4 ton with the classic 350 V8 and automatic transmission combo. What makes this particularly cool is that it's a numbers-matching example with 99,000 original miles. That's pretty remarkable for a truck of this vintage. Let's be real about the condition. The seller's being upfront about some issues, which I appreciate. There's some rust present, though they claim it's not severe or through and through. The paint's peeling in spots, and it needs a new tailgate. However, they state all body panels are original and accident-free, which is becoming increasingly rare for these square-body trucks. Some nice features include the rear sliding window, and it's riding on newer tires all around. Being a 4x4 3/4 ton model makes this a pretty desirable configuration, especially for collectors and enthusiasts who appreciate these robust workhorses. At $12,000, you're in the ballpark for a clean, square-body GMC, especially considering it's a one-owner vehicle with matching numbers. The market for these trucks has been strong, and good examples are getting harder to find. 6. We're checking out a 1976 Ford F-150 Ranger that's listed for $4,500, and let me be straight with you about this one. It's definitely a project truck. The seller's being pretty honest here. This is a project vehicle that runs as is. It's packing a 351 V8 engine paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, which is actually a pretty desirable powertrain combo. The odometer shows 19,259, but the seller notes it's rolled over, so we're looking at 119,259 miles or possibly more. Now let's keep it real. This truck needs work. The seller mentions having the bed moldings, which aren't currently on the truck, and describes it as a solid truck to restore. It's wearing white paint, and while it's listed in good condition, the seller's description and price point suggest it's more of a starting point than a finished product. At $4,500, you're looking at project truck money here. The clean title is definitely a plus, and these 70s Ford Rangers have a strong following. The 351 4-speed manual combination is particularly appealing to enthusiasts, and if it truly is a solid truck as claimed, it could be a worthwhile project. Look, I've got to be honest, this isn't a truck you're going to drive home and show off at Cars and Coffee next weekend. It's going to need some love, time, and money. But if you're looking for a classic Ford project with good bones and a desirable drivetrain, this might be worth checking out. Just make sure to give it a thorough inspection, especially for rust and mechanical issues, before pulling the trigger. 7. Let me tell you about this 1970 Chevy C10 I just came across on Craigslist. Being completely honest with you, this classic long bed has some charm, but also needs some love. The asking price is $10,500, and here's the real deal. It's rocking its factory 350 V8 with a 3-speed manual transmission, column shift, showing about 95,000 miles. While the seller lists it as excellent, I've got to keep it real. There are some issues we need to talk about. The good stuff first. The truck's surprisingly solid for its age with minimal rust, and most of it appears original. The interior's generally clean, and it's got matching wheels including the spare. That's always nice to see. Now let's be straight about the challenges. There's a compression issue on cylinder hash 6, running at about 90 psi, and it's got some fuel delivery problems that need sorting out. You'll need starting fluid for cold starts, and there's a throttle skip at low RPMs. The electrical system needs attention. There's some wonky wiring in the steering column affecting the horn and turn signals. The steering column itself has some play in it, and you've got some rust breaking through on the driver's floor and passenger rocker panel. For the interior, you're looking at replacing the seat and foam dash, but that's pretty typical for these old trucks. Listen, for $10,500, you're getting a piece of American automotive history that needs some mechanical attention, but isn't a total project car. It's one of those situations where you could drive it while you fix it up gradually. Just know going in that you'll need to address those mechanical issues to make it a reliable daily driver. 8. Let me tell you about this eye-catching 1971 El Camino SS clone that's up for grabs at $24,500. Now, let's be real with each other here. This isn't your original SS, it's a clone, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. The sellers put some serious work into making this El Camino a head-turner. We're looking at a professionally painted beauty with a 350 V8 paired to a 350 automatic transmission, topped off with a B&M racing shifter for that authentic muscle car feel. The attention to detail is pretty impressive. You've got those classic racing stripes on the hood, weld racing wheels that really set off the look, and a practical touch with the sprayed-in bed liner. The paint job looks fresh and clean, and according to the seller, it's been done professionally. Now, being straight with you folks, while the seller's comparing it to $60K examples, this is a clone, so the price point of $24,500 makes more sense. You're getting the looks and performance of an SS without the collector-level price tag. The description is pretty brief, which leaves some questions about the mechanical condition and history. But visually, it appears to be a well-put-together machine. For those looking for a classic El Camino that combines show car looks with driver-quality functionality, this could be your ticket. Just remember, it's a clone, not an original SS, but that doesn't take away from what appears to be a clean, well-executed build. 9. Let's talk about this 1977 Chevy C104X4 that's popped up for $2,800. I'm gonna keep it completely real with you about this one. Look, this is straight-up project truck territory, and the seller's being pretty honest about it. For $2,800, you're getting a long bed 4X4 that's basically a blank canvas. The good news? It's surprisingly solid where it counts. No cancer rust, which is huge for these old trucks. Solid doors, bed, and floors. That's actually pretty rare for a 77. Now, let's be crystal clear about what you're getting into. This truck isn't running. The engine, likely a 350 V8, is paired with a 4-speed manual and 4X4 setup, but it's all untested. The wiring under the hood needs to be sorted out. It's there but not connected. You've got power steering and power brakes, but again, nothing's been tested since the engine isn't running. The odometer shows 19,627, but it's rolled over at least once. The interior is, well, the seller calls it good not great, which probably means it's serviceable but don't expect any awards. Here's the real talk. For $2,800, you're getting a solid foundation for a project. The fact that it's rust-free is honestly the biggest selling point here. Square body trucks are hot right now, and finding one without major rust issues is getting harder by the day. 10. Let's talk about this 1976 Ford F-250 that's up for $7,350. I'm going to keep it real with you all. Look, this is an interesting one. We've got a classic F-250 packing the mighty 460 big block V8 paired with a C5 automatic transmission. The seller claims it's got 30,000 miles, and both the engine and transmission have been rebuilt, which is a significant plus if true, though as always with classics, take mileage claims with a grain of salt. Now, the description is pretty bare bones, which honestly makes me a bit cautious. The seller mentions there's no rust, and it's got new mufflers, good wheels, and a tow hitch. That's great, but the super brief description and lack of detail about the rebuild work leaves a lot of questions unanswered. Being straight with you, for $7,350, you'd want to see a lot more documentation about that engine and transmission rebuild. The 460 is a beast of an engine when properly maintained, but they can be thirsty monsters that need attention. Bottom line, this could be a solid work truck with a potent powertrain, but with such a brief description, you'll definitely want to do a thorough inspection and ask for documentation about those rebuilds. The price isn't outrageous for a clean big block F250 if everything checks out, but you'll want to verify all claims in person. 11. Let me tell you about this 1969 Chevy C10 short bed that's tugging at the heartstrings, listed at $11,500. I'm going to keep it completely real with you all. This is a true survivor truck with a touching story. It was a grandfather-grandson project that unfortunately never reached completion. We're looking at an original short bed powered by the straight 6 engine. These are actually pretty bulletproof motors, with a 3-speed manual transmission mounted on the column. Let's be honest about the condition. This truck's showing its age with some rust issues that need addressing. There's rust in the typical spots, rocker panels on both sides, and some rust starting in the floor pans, though the seller notes it's nothing dramatic. The good news is that the fenders and doors are reportedly solid, which is a plus for these old trucks. The truck is a runner and driver, which is great. No mystery about whether it moves under its own power. It's rolling on fairly new tires, so that's one less immediate expense to worry about. Now, being straight with you folks, $11,500 is asking a fair bit for a 6-cylinder C10 with rust issues, even if it is a desirable 69 short bed. However, these trucks have been climbing in value, and finding an original running example is getting harder. The sentimental value is clear in this listing, but remember to buy with your head as well as your heart. You'll need to budget for rust repair and probably a full restoration if you want to bring it back to its former glory. 12. Let me tell you about this absolutely fascinating 1978 Ford F250 Ranger I just came across on Craigslist. This isn't your average old Ford truck. We're looking at a special ordered extended cab model, which was pretty rare for '78. The asking price is $18,500, and honestly, for what you're getting, it's worth discussing. With only 35,000 miles on the clock, if verified. That's incredibly low for a 45-year-old workhorse. What really gets me excited is how well this truck has been maintained and updated. The original owner, yes, one owner truck, has basically renewed everything that matters. Fresh interior, newer silver paint that matches the original color scheme, new tires, and all the mechanical essentials, from the carb to the AC compressor, brakes, and exhaust. Those dual fuel tanks are a super practical feature that came from the factory. Under the hood, you've got that classic Ford V8 paired with an automatic transmission, sending power to the rear wheels, a proper truck setup. The clean title is definitely a big plus, and being a Ranger trim level makes it even more special. Look, I've seen a lot of '70s trucks, and when sellers claim excellent condition, I'm usually skeptical. But based on the extensive list of new components and the fact it's remained with its original owner, this F250 seems to be one of those genuine gems. These extended cab Rangers from '78 are genuinely rare finds, especially in this kind of condition. 13. Let me tell you about this sweet 1971 El Camino I found on Craigslist for $13,900. You know, there's something special about El Caminos. They're the perfect mix of muscle car style and pickup practicality, and this one's a real eye-catcher. What's really got me excited is that this is a rust-free example, which is huge for these cars, coming from a hot rod shop in Temecula, California. Under the hood, you've got the classic 350 V8 paired with an automatic transmission, a combo that's both reliable and fun. With 55,000 miles showing on the odometer, it's got some life experience, but hasn't been run into the ground. The seller mentions it runs and drives excellently, which is always music to our ears. Let's talk about that paint job. The previous owner dropped $8,000 on it just 3 years ago, and from what they're saying, the body is straight with no patch repairs needed. That's pretty impressive for a 50-year-old car. They've also upgraded the front suspension and added power steering and brakes for better drivability. For $13,900, considering the money invested in the paint alone and the overall condition, this El Camino seems like a solid deal in today's market. These cars are only getting harder to find in good condition, especially rust-free examples. If you're in the market for a classic El Camino that you can drive and enjoy right away, this one deserves a serious look. 14. Let me tell you about this awesome 1970 Ford F250 I just spotted on Craigslist for $19,500. This is one of those classic heavy-duty workhorses that Ford built to last, and man, does this one look impressive. What we've got here is a 4x4 beast, powered by the mighty 390 V8 engine. That's some serious muscle. And get this, it's paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, which is exactly what you want in these old trucks for that authentic driving experience. With 70,000 miles on the clock, this F250 has definitely seen some life. But don't let that worry you. These old Fords were built like tanks. The seller states it's in excellent condition and has had lots of recent maintenance work done both inside and out, which is exactly what you want to hear on a 53-year-old truck. The clean title is a big plus, and being a 4x4 model with the 390 engine makes this a pretty desirable combination. At $19,500, while it's not cheap, you're getting a classic 4x4 truck that's becoming increasingly hard to find in good condition. Just remember, as with any classic vehicle, you'll want to inspect it thoroughly in person. Check the frame, the 4x4 system, and make sure all that maintenance work is properly documented. But if everything checks out, this could be an awesome piece of American truck history that you can actually use and enjoy. 15. Let me tell you about this interesting 1956 Ford F100 I found on Craigslist, listed at $22,000. This is one of those iconic 50s Ford pickups that everyone loves, finished in gray and packing some interesting features. At its heart is a rebuilt 292 Y-block V8 engine. That's the original power plant, folks. Paired with Ford's period-correct Ford-O-Matic 3-speed automatic transmission. The seller claims 18,000 miles, though we should probably assume that's since the rebuild rather than original miles. Now, what makes this F100 particularly interesting is that it's got electric windows, definitely not a standard feature in 1956. That's a nice modern touch that adds some convenience without taking away from the truck's classic character. The seller describes it as a good-looking truck in good condition. Not excellent, which I appreciate the honesty. And it comes with a clean California title, which is always a plus since California trucks typically suffer less from rust issues. At $22,000, we're in the middle range for 56 F100s. These trucks have become serious collectibles over the years, and while this isn't a show-quality example, it seems to be a solid driver that you could enjoy while gradually improving. If you're looking at this truck, you'll definitely want to inspect that Y-block rebuild and make sure everything's working as it should. Check the electrical system too, especially those power windows. Old electrical modifications can sometimes be troublesome. 16. Let me tell you about this fascinating 1972 Ford Ranchero 500 I found on Craigslist for $13,000. What we've got here is a seriously well-preserved piece of automotive history. This California car is rocking its original gold glow metallic paint and comes powered by the matching numbers 351 Cleveland V8, paired with a C4 automatic transmission. With just under 47,000 miles that are believed to be original, this car-truck hybrid has clearly been babied. The seller is incredibly detailed in their description, which I absolutely love. They're upfront about everything, the good and the not-so-perfect. The body is described as perfectly straight, with no rust or dents, that California weather helping out, and the bed looks barely used. The original vinyl top is still in great condition, which is pretty rare for a 50-year-old vehicle. Now, let's be honest about the few issues. The dash has some cracking, though there's a cover. The heater core leaks, replaced with an underdash unit, and the clock doesn't work. The original rally wheels have been switched out for stock Ford wheels with newer tires, but hey, that's actually safer. Some cool features include factory AC, converted to R134, power disc brakes, power steering, and even the original AM radio still works. The 3.00. One rear end makes this a comfortable cruiser rather than a drag strip warrior. 17. Let me tell you about this 1957 Chevy Cameo I spotted on Craigslist for $19,500. And I've got to be straight with you about this one. The Cameo is one of Chevy's most iconic trucks. It was basically the Cadillac of pickups in its day. This one's powered by a 283 V8 with a rebuilt carburetor, paired with a 3-speed manual transmission on the floor, which is a cool setup. The brown paint adds to that classic 50s vibe. Now, let's be honest here. The seller describes this as being in fair condition, and they're being pretty upfront about both the work done and the issues. They've put in some solid effort to make it more reliable with new gas lines, door handles, bedwood, motor mount, and brake lines. The fender scripts are new too. But here's where we need to talk straight. The odometer has rolled over. It's on non-op status, meaning it's not currently registered for road use, and the seller admits it needs electrical work. That's something you'll definitely want to factor into your budget and plans. At $19,500, you're paying for the Cameo's rarity and potential. These trucks are seriously collectible. However, given the condition and needed work, you might want to negotiate a bit. Remember, a fully restored Cameo can fetch serious money, but this one's more of a project that's been partially sorted. 18. Let me tell you about this 1972 Chevy C10 short bed that's popped up on Craigslist for $16,000. This is one of those classic C10s that everyone loves, the 67. 72 generation that's become incredibly popular with collectors and customizers. We're looking at a short bed model, the more desirable variant, in blue, powered by the tried and true 350 V8, paired with an automatic transmission. It's got power steering and power brakes, which makes it much more enjoyable to drive than the non-powered versions. Now let's be real here. The seller's description is pretty bare bones, which always makes me a bit cautious. They mention it runs good and has a clean title, but it's currently on non-op registration. The odometer shows 89,000 miles but has rolled over, so the actual mileage is unknown. At $16,000, we're in the middle range for these trucks. C10s from this era have skyrocketed in value over the past few years, but you'll want to inspect this one thoroughly. The seller's cash-only no-trade stance is pretty firm, and they're not offering much detail about the truck's condition beyond good. If you're interested in this C10, you'll definitely want to check it out in person. Look for the usual rust spots these trucks are known for, especially in the cab corners and floor pans. Make sure that 350 is running as well as claimed, and check why it's on non-op status. 19. Let me tell you about this really interesting 1950 Studebaker truck I found on Craigslist for $14,000, and this one's got quite a story. This isn't your typical restored Studebaker. We're looking at a serious hot rod build in progress. The seller has gone all in with modern upgrades, starting with a Chevy 350 Vortec crate engine paired with a freshly rebuilt TH400 automatic transmission. That's a rock-solid, reliable combination that'll make this old truck a proper driver. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The seller is completely upfront about this being a project in progress. The truck is currently torn down, which is actually good because you can see exactly what you're getting into. They've already done some serious upgrades: power steering, front disc brakes, a tilt column, and a Pontiac rear end with 3.64 gears. Those new American Racing Torque Thrust 2 wheels, 15X7, are classic hot rod fare and look great on these trucks. There's a bunch of new parts included: a complete 6-piece gauge set, radio, various switches, wiring kit, and even some custom touches like 1936 Ford taillights and a Bronco rear bumper. The seller mentions they have boxes of additional new parts too. The truck is currently on non-op status with a clean title, and the seller is clear that the price will increase as they continue working on it. At $14,000, you're basically buying a project that's had a lot of the expensive mechanical upgrades already done, but you'll need to be ready to either finish it yourself or work with the seller to complete it. 20. Let me tell you about this sweet 1971 Chevy C10 Cheyenne that's up for grabs at $22,500. First off, this is one of those desirable Cheyenne models. And it's got that classic lowered stance thanks to 2.5 inches drop spindles up front and 4 inches drop leaf springs in the rear, sitting just right on those American Racing Torque Thrust 2 15x8 wheels wrapped in meaty BF Goodrich radial TAs. The green paint isn't original, but gives it a great classic look. The seller has done some serious work on this truck. All new brakes with drilled and slotted fronts, fresh steering components, new inner fenders, cab mounts, and a rebuilt rear end with 3.42 gears. They've even thrown in a new dual exhaust system. Bet it sounds great. Now let's be honest about a few things. The original engine and transmission have some small leaks, pretty common for these old trucks. And while it's a factory AC truck, the air isn't currently working. There's minimal rust on the driver's side rocker and passenger door, and someone cut speaker holes in the rear corners of the cab. The interior's a mix of original and updated parts, with a new seat, carpet, and steering wheel. What's cool is that the box, bed, is described as fairly clean and dent-free, which isn't always easy to find on these workhorses. Plus, the seller is including lots of extra parts, including the original springs and spindles. That's great if you ever want to return it to stock height.